Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is I'll turn off the overdubs. What I'm going to do is I'd like to have you listen to the tracking acoustic guitar and vocal. And so you can hear the leakage and kind of hear what is acceptable, so that you're aware of how you can manage a recording if you end up keeping the acoustic and vocal as we did on a couple other songs. And then I'll show you how we went about replacing them. Okay, so now as you can see on the screen, I have the vocal here and the acoustic. I have the original playlist pulled up for them. So we're going to start at the end of chorus 1, and we'll just listen to the 3-piece band as we were recording them the day of tracking.
Sometimes a heartbreak puts you on your knees and it leaves you begging, please let me go.
Okay, so what I did there was I turned the vocal mic off, and you could hear that there wasn't a lot. You could hear some vocal bleed in the acoustic mic, and then I switched it to where the acoustic mic was off and the vocal mic was back on, and you hear more bleed in the vocal mic. That's pretty typical. You know, usually you're able to get the acoustic mic a little bit tighter or in a better spot for a better rejection from the vocal, but the being that the vocal, especially a vocal like this, it's not sung very loud. The acoustic guitar, as you can hear, it's pretty loud in the vocal mic. So once we got this take down, and here, let me show you.
Pulling you through, girl, what's left to lose? Pulling you through, girl, what's left?
So that's each of those soloed up. So once we got our take down, and so that means we had the drums and bass down. The vocal and acoustic guitar performance were okay for sure, but as you heard just there, there's probably some notes vocally that could have been sung a little bit better. It's hard to always have a stellar performance when you're doing two things, when you're playing the acoustic guitar and vocal. So want to give myself an opportunity to do more vocal takes and be able to do some tuning if necessary, right? So so now that we have the take established, and let me just say that it's important, it's really important to me when I'm recording, especially when you're not using a click and the production and song is focused so much around a singer-songwriter like this, you really need to have a vocal to work to. So, and in this case, because it's something that needs to be led and it's like a relationship or performance, I really needed Ford to play and sing at the same time. And, you know, obviously he's dealing with having changed the key a few times. He'd written the song in D. He'd become very used to listening to it that way and probably playing it that way for a good deal of time before he showed up for pre-production, and I had him lower the key, and now we've raised the key. So, you know, he's not at his best perhaps because he hasn't been able to live with it and prepare. But it's really essential to guide the dynamics and the performance of the song that we have the singer singing, and because it's the acoustic guitar is obviously a very important part of this, we needed that to happen too. So, but now that we have those things established, our drums and bass, which are in isolation, their performance has been informed by what Ford did. So even though we don't have a click, they were all playing together, and there is the familiar and influenced feeling of Ford playing along with the track. So the first thing to do is we replace the acoustic guitar. So as you can see here, we did one additional pass of acoustic guitar. So, and that's what we've been, that's what we hear in the final song, right? And so as soon as we determined that we had made the take, the guys came in and listened with me. We talked about it for a minute, just checking in with how everybody was feeling about it. Did anybody have any fixes they wanted to do? As you can see on the bass, we punched in a couple small bits. That's what those are about. Eli was like, hey, can I just punch that little spot in there? I meant to do something else, or I made a mistake, or I don't remember why we did each little interjection in here, each punch in, but that's typically the way it goes. I have the musicians come in and see how they feel about it, and make sure that they also agree. I mean, ultimately, as a producer, I have the decision, and the loudest voice in the decision-making process that I have to consider is the artist. But I also want to know how the musicians feel about their sound and their performance, because I want everybody I want there to be a feeling of a team and moving as a unit, and that everybody is feeling inspired, and that everybody's feeling inspired and included, and that their creative opinions matter. And it's also Eli, the bass player, he's very in tune with what it is he's trying to do. If he missed a note somewhere along the way, or he had a thought for a better part, well, I might not notice that right away, but he's really tuned into what he's doing. And then Ian, who's the drummer, I want to make sure how he feels. And as you can see here on the drum performance, made a little bit of a timing adjustment. So I'm sure that after everybody listened, we did some bass punches, and then I made an adjustment to the timing of the drums in this one particular spot in the turnaround, the second turnaround, and then so now it's time to replace the acoustic guitar and vocal. We didn't do the vocal right away. We replaced the acoustic guitar. Like I said, we just did one pass. And now I didn't change anything about the setup. I just had Ford go back in the vocal booth and sit down at his setup. I wasn't really looking to, in this particular instance, I wasn't looking to change the sounds that I'd gotten. I was just looking to replace the acoustic guitar so that I could have separation from the vocal. So I just had him go back in and sit down and just replay the song as he had just done, whatever, maybe 15, 20 minutes earlier, and get the acoustic guitar down. On this particular day, we didn't record the vocals straight away, meaning that as soon as he had done the acoustic guitar, I didn't have him then do the vocals. We did do that on some songs. If I felt like he was in good voice, or we were really, we were doing really well, I'd want him to stay connected to that moment, that feeling of being in the song, and go out and sing. I mean, the feeling of, the work that it took us to get to where we are, the sounds, the conversation around the key, probably talked about the tempo because we slowed it down from the pre-production work tape that we had referenced. And that's another thing I should say is that when the guys showed up for the session to record, I had a pre-production recording that I played them so they could make charts or just make notes about what they were doing. And I think it's really important on sessions to have those work tapes so that you can play them for the musician, send them to them in advance so that they can listen to them and become familiar, that they can have thoughts about what instruments they might show up with. Yeah, Eli's only playing bass, but he has tons of different bass guitars, so he might listen to all the demos and say, okay, well, I know which 4 basses I feel like I would use on this record, this album, and so I'll bring those, and we could have a conversation about it. Eli also typically makes charts. He makes number charts to have those to bring in and be able to reference those, and we share them. Ian not only plays drums. Ian is a very complete musician. He's an amazing musician as well as Eli, so Ian on this song played a second acoustic guitar. On other songs, he played piano and keys. He's a really pretty complete musician. So jumping around a little bit, but we just so you kind of understand the process. There's a lot of things going on, and the sequencing of events is important.